8.6 is car payments. It is a fairly short section, and yes, our project's going to be focused more on houses than cars, but there is a very important concept that we are going to cover in this section, so it's worth talking through these car payments. Now, loan payments for a fixed amount, loan payment formula for fixed payments, and this is monthly, because that's is quite often what a car payment is. When you have a car loan, you are going to be paying a monthly amount versus, I mean, maybe you have a weird agreement with a used car dealer, but in general, if you're working through a regular dealership, you're going to have monthly payments. And so this is going to figure out, okay, well, what's my principal amount? How much was my actual car that I'm borrowing for or leasing for or taking a loan out for? My N is the number of times we're compounding. Well, it's monthly, so it's probably just going to be 12. And then T is just how long is your car loan for. So to see all that in practice, we say that we have $20,000. We have two options. When we're shopping around, we have these two different car loan options. So one is a 3-year loan at 7%, and the second option is a 5-year loan at 9%. So we're going to figure out, using this formula, what's the best option. So here, I have a 3-year loan. That is, my T is 3. I'm compounding monthly because we're dealing with car payments, so my N is 12, and my rate is 0.0%. And so now I pay $618 monthly. Now, my second option, I have a 5-year loan at 9%. Okay, I plug it into my formula. I figure out that the monthly payment on that loan is $415. Now, something to consider when you're just looking at those amounts and you're thinking, okay, well, obviously the second one is a smaller amount, so that's probably the better option. Well, that's not entirely true. So this is what I was talking about last section, or maybe 2 sections ago, when sometimes we have objective answers, or it's just, okay, the more money is the better, the less money is worse. In this case, you kind of have to get the full picture before making your decision. So now that we know what our monthly payments are, a question we might want to ask ourselves is how much of our money is going into interest? So we can figure that out by taking our monthly payments, timesing it by how many times we have to pay that monthly payment, and then subtracting it from the total cost of the car. So 618 times 36, because we have a 3-year loan, 3 times 12 is 36. And I subtract 20,000, I am paying $2,248 into interest. Now, for my second car loan, $415 times 60. The 60 comes from, it's a 5-year loan, so 5 times 12 gets me 60. 415 is just that monthly payment. I subtract the cost of the car, and so now I see that my interest paid is $4,900. Now, if this question shows up, I think it's going to show up something very similar on the house or the mortgage project. What you're going to have to do is you're going to kind of have to go through all this detective work and figure out this information and then make your own conclusion. Because in this case, each loan has its advantages and disadvantages. Sure, interest option B, you're going to be paying your loan longer. That's not great. And you are going to be paying much more to interest, which also doesn't feel great. But the monthly payment's lower. So maybe that's your only option. Maybe that's what you can afford to pay each month. Or even if you can afford to pay that much or more each month, maybe you want to invest it elsewhere and earn money elsewhere. So that's these things where you have to take into consideration when you're buying a car or when you're buying a house, is figuring out your budget, figuring out, is it worth it for you to be paying this loan so much? Is it worth it to be having this different interest payments? I know me being the type of person I am, I'm always trying to avoid paying as much interest as possible. So if I can afford it, I definitely is going to take option A, but that doesn't mean you would be doing the same thing, or maybe there's a case I couldn't afford it, so option B is my only option. So take those things into consideration, take what you're learning into this course, learning from this course as ammunition so that when you make these investment decisions, you can say, cool, I have all the information. I'm not getting tricked. They're not giving me a terrible interest rate, and I know this is what I want to do. Kind of see it again. Now we have a new car that costs $25,000 that can be financed with a 4-year loan of 7.9%. We have a used car that is much cheaper and can be financed in another 4-year loan, but now we're doing 8.54%. And again, car loans, unless you have weird cases, always going to be monthly. So we're going to be compounding these monthly. So now I'm going to figure out my payment. I take my rate of option A is 0.079. Compounded monthly is 12. My initial cost, or the total cost of the car, is $25,000. And my duration of my loan is 4. Throw that into my calculator. I see that my monthly payment is $609. Now we move on to our used car. Fill out our formula very similarly. In this case, my rate is 0.0845, moving my decimal place over twice. The cost of my car is $14,000, and car payments are monthly, so my N is 12. Throw that in my calculator. I have $345 monthly payment. Now, okay, that's good information. Obviously, the used car is cheaper, and obviously, you're going to be paying less money or for the same duration when you're comparing the two options, because the car loans are the same. The monthly pay difference is pretty staggering. It's $264. Maybe another thing to take into consideration is, well, generally a new car has better fuel mileage than a used car. So you can figure out your annual fuel expense. You take your annual miles traveled divided by miles per gallon. That will get you the annual fuel expense. And that is something that quite often, if you're at a dealership, they're going to give that amount to you. And of course, there's the intangibles as well of my girlfriend is considering buying a new car. I can't really afford one, but she can. She's never owned a new car. So even with all of this information, and we're talking about better car loans and cheaper monthly payments and gas rates and all of that, she's probably going to buy a new car because it's a new car. She wants a new car. So that's something else you have to take into consideration. And it's a hard decision-making process, but it's nice to have as much information as you can so you can make an informed decision when you are buying things. That's the main message of this section. Yes, we probably won't be covering cars when we're doing the mortgage project, but it's not as clear cut when you're talking about the best decision because there's a lot of things to take into account.